All of a sudden, 12 minutes prior to boarding, the captain comes off the plane. When he comes off the plane, he takes the microphone and he doesn't do that captain talk. Folks, this is your captain. Yeah, just tell us, right? You ever hear that? You ever been on a plane there? Folks, yeah, we're going to be 37,000 feet. We're going to keep it in the air. Don't hit a mountain or a tree. We're good. And don't talk again. This guy comes off the plane, and I'm like, guy beside me goes, not good, not good. Because, you know, we're in the platinum, plutonium, whatever that line is. Captain says this, ladies and gentlemen, he said, welcome to gate C12 here at O'Hare Airport. He said, my name is Captain Denny Flanagan. And he said, I'm going to be your captain, taking you from Sacramento to Chicago. He said, gotcha. He said, we're in Chicago. We're going Chicago to Sacramento. Just wanted to see if you were listening. Blank stare. He thinks he's funny. We all say, no, you're not. But then he says, if you're going to Sacramento, California on Flight 61 with me, I want to hear a woo-hoo! I don't hear a word. One woman, I hear woo-hoo. And there's always one. There's one that works here. She's the one that comes to the meeting with lifesavers and gum. If you need a stapler, in her purse. You need tape, she's got it. And if we said right now we're going to sing Kumbaya and hold hands, she'd be going, oh, this will be fun. Here's what Captain Denny Flanagan next says. He said, ladies and gentlemen, he said, I got control of this flight because if you don't know what the FAA does, I called the tower. We told them we did pre-flight. The first officer, he's known as the FO, sits in the right seat. He said, we have signed off on this. And he said, now, I'm the commander of this flight. I say when it goes, if it goes. I say who goes and who doesn't go. He said, so let's review. I don't like the energy that I'm feeling. I don't think you want to go to Sacramento. So here's the way it's going to work. If I don't feel the energy and the love, we're going to board late. You're going to miss connections. Because I love what I do, and I want you to enjoy it. So, if you're going to Sacramento, I want to hear a woo-hoo. Guy beside me, literally, woo-hoo! He looks at me and goes, I got to get there. But then it takes a different twist. He looks at me and he says, ladies and gentlemen, there are 251 of you about to board a 767 to Sacramento. 5 of you have never flown before. 5 of you will be nervous. You're going to be anxious. I don't want to talk to you. I want to talk to the 246 that have flown before. I want these 5 people to represent your mother, your father, your grandmother, and your grandfather. I want you to ask yourself as they begin to board this plane, how would you want your mother or grandmother treated if this was her first flight? What would you want 3 people removed to be saying when they stopped in the aisle to get their reading glasses? What would you want them to be saying? Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a great country, but the problem is we've grown impatient. We've actually grown rude. He said, 251 of you will board, and here's what I'd like. I'd like you to assume that the person in front of you and behind you has never flown before. I'd like you to be helpful. Be courteous. Because he said, I'm going to make you a promise. We're going to make this the best flight you've ever flown. That's guaranteed. He said, as you board this flight, you're going to be greeted by Gail. She's the flight attendant working the A position. The B position will be worked by Meredith. He named 4 flight attendants by name. In the history of me flying, why did I tell you? I have flown millions north of 7 million miles. I've never had one captain come out and announce who was working the positions. When I said about Whataburger and In-N-Out Burger, why did I say Whataburger, In-N-Out Burger? Because if you go through an In-N-Out Burger, the first time I was ever in an In-N-Out Burger, I heard this. Welcome to In-N-Out Burger. Hey, I'm Brad. I'm going to take your order when you're ready. When I got to the first window, he said, Gracie will help you with the second window. He identified the person. Now I got a captain telling me, who's in what position. He then says, I mentioned the first officer. He said his name is Ken. He lives in the Chicago area, military, fighter pilot, Air Force. He said, I've never flown with anybody that has better command of that instrument panel than that captain, first officer named Ken. What did he just do to the 5 people that have never flown? He not only calmed them down, he took about 20 more people that are a little apprehensive about flying. Then he put a little boy up in a chair and he said, I want you to meet Frankie. Frankie's 12 years old. He represents one of 82,000 unaccompanied minors that fly every year. He said, Frankie will be going on the plane by himself. This is his mom. I saw tears in her eyes. He said, Frankie's mom is putting Frankie on the plane. Frankie's grandma's on the other end. Now, I've taken the liberty to get the manifest. I know that in 6B and 6C, there is a couple with the same last name. I'm making an assumption you are related and possibly married. Would you please identify yourself prior to the boarding process starting? Didn't wait a second. A woman walked up and said, Captain, my husband and I are in 6B and 6C. He then said, oh, and he went to say something, and she turned from him, took the hands of the mother and said, I'll be in 6B. I have 3 children myself. I will treat your son like he's mine. Now the tears came down. A single moment made a huge difference. I was at a clinic. I saw an orientation film. I saw a guy come in a wheelchair. After I watched the orientation film and the tears streamed down my face, I said, that's amazing. Because in the orientation film, it showed a person going down an escalator and it said, just found out benign. It showed a man going up and it said, just got diagnosis malignant. The elevator doors open. There was a nurse, scared, frightened, going through a divorce. There was a young nurse having first child. It gave like 20 scenarios. And then at the end, it simply said, if you could feel what they feel, see what they see, and hear what they hear as you pass them by, would you treat them differently? I flew for 10 days not knowing. I flew for 10 days and kept calling my wife and saying, you've got to be kidding me. They still have not called. For 10 days, I did not know if they got it all. But I remember walking on an airplane, and I remember a flight attendant with a big smile on her face. And she said, how are you today? And I kind of broke down a little bit. I said, I'm going to be all right. I said, how about you? She said, I'm too blessed to be stressed. And then she came back and talked to me. When Denny Flanagan said what he said about those 5 people and front and back, I started thinking, man, how many times do I rush on the plane? I got to get my bag up. Boy, we started to board. We sat down on an airplane, and within seconds, a guy beside me went, is this not the wildest thing you've ever experienced? I said, I've never experienced it. He said, how about the compassion with the mother putting I said, oh, we're talking like this, and then all of a sudden we hear, folks, Captain Denny Flanagan from the cockpit, if you've got a black Labrador Retriever right in the belly of the plane, please ring your call button. We hear, pong, comes walking out. We go to land, and after we land, a total stranger looks at me and says, wait a minute, you said you're an author. Wait a minute, you said what's the name of that book again? I said, Making a Difference. He goes, you tell me, have you ever been on a plane that a pilot made a bigger difference? I said, no. And then he looked at me and said, I'll tell you what. He said, put it this way. Isn't it amazing how one person can totally define the culture of 251 people? I sat down. I wrote the story of Denny Flanagan. And then everything in my life happens for the reason. 6 months later, final manuscript was ready to be turned in. I took it on the road because I'm an anal compulsive organized perfectionist. I had to read it one more time. And I'm glad I took it. And I'm glad I didn't turn it in, because I checked into a hotel in Philadelphia. I looked at a United crew and I went, it's got to be him. I walked over I said, hey, I don't mean to intrude, but I said, are you Captain Denny Flanagan? He turned around and said, Captain Denny Flanagan. He said, United Airlines. He said, you ever been on one of my flights? I said, I have. He said, best flight you've ever flown? I said, it was. He had me so emotional and fired up. I said, yes. He said, what can I do for you? I said, well, I'd like to share something with you. I said, I know that. He goes, well, let's have dinner. Hotel restaurant, we go down to have dinner. Sit down, I slide it across. He sees making a difference, a matter of purpose, passion, and pride. He takes his finger and imaginarily circles pride. He said, that's why I do it. He said, I take pride in what I do every day. I said, how did you know I was going to ask you why? He said, because everybody does. You see, you know how many pilots make fun of me? You know how many flight attendants I brief and they have their fingers stuck in a Red Book magazine, they're rolling their eyes, they don't even take the pods out of their ears. Because he said most people that brief them just simply say, you've heard this before, blah, 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 blah. Okay, you're briefed. He said, I tell them to take the pods out of their ears and take the finger out of the magazine. And I tell them that I want you to listen to something. And you can make fun of me, but you need to hear this. That you have no idea who's about to board this flight. But let me give you a glimpse. In row 20, there's a woman who was married 28 years. Her husband one day announced, I love you, but I'm not in love with you. He's leaving her. She's on this flight. She's in row 20. Row 14 is a family of 4. They got separated. They don't have seats together. 2 are on one side, 2 are on the other side. They're going to attend the 2 children's grandmother's funeral. That would be their dad's mom. Row 8, middle seat. There's going to be a young lady that went back for her annual checkup to make sure nothing's come back. He said, I look at them every time I fly every day before I come out to address everybody at the gate, and I tell them, you have no idea who's boarded this plane. Powerfully simple. You have no idea who you're sitting in front of. You have no idea how bad they need what you have. You have no idea that the story you may tell, the emotion you may evoke, may change their life forever. I read the history of this company and the difference it has made. I sat at that restaurant with tears in my eyes. And I said, that's amazing. He said, no. He said, you wrote, I said, how? I said, my book pales in comparison to what you do every day. He said, so we talked. Because you know why? Because it is about pride. Taking pride in what you do. The excitement, the honor of me being here.